This video will show how a cellular response is activated through reception and transduction. We will start with the G protein receptor system. This is a signal protein that binds with the G protein linked receptor to activate it. Next, the G protein linked receptor uses a GTP molecule to activate the G protein. The G protein is activated when the GTP releases a phosphate, making it GDP. Then the activated G protein binds to the enzyme. The activation of this enzyme is the beginning of a series of reactions between ATP and proteins. Through the addition of a phosphate, the protein's shape changes and it becomes more likely to react with other proteins. This process is known as the signal transduction pathway. At the end of this pathway, the cellular response is received, and in this case, calcium ions are released from the ER. That was the G protein receptor system. Now, let's move on to the tyrosine kinase receptor system. This process starts with signal proteins from the cell membrane. These bind to the tyrosine kinase receptors, thus activating them. Next, two receptors bond to form a dimer. Then, 6 ATP bind to the receptor and each release a phosphate, making them ADP. Inactive relay proteins then bind to the receptor and become activated. These proteins then use ATP to start the signal transduction pathway, also known as the phosphorylation cascade. Through the addition of a phosphate, the protein shape changes and it becomes more likely to react with other proteins. At the end of this pathway, the cellular response is received and, in this case, calcium ions are released from the ER. That was the second system, the tyrosine kinase receptor. Cell communication is very important to the body's functioning, and when cell communication goes awry, it can have many negative consequences. One of the diseases caused by errors in cell communication is Alzheimer's disease. Acetylcholine is a very important neurotransmitter that is involved in memory and muscle movement. In Alzheimer's, however, this acetylcholine cannot bind to the receptor because it is blocked by a neurotoxin. This means that the signal transduction pathway cannot occur and the appropriate response cannot be released. This leads to memory degradation in patients with Alzheimer's, resulting in memory loss, confusion, delusion, disorientation, and difficulty thinking or understanding. There is no known cure for Alzheimer's, but cognition-enhancing medications, physical exercise, and therapy may help symptoms. When cell communication pathways are functioning properly, this is what should happen. The acetylcholine binds to the receptor in the cell membrane, thus activating it. The activated acetylcholine receptor activates the enzyme, starting the signal transduction pathway. Through the addition of a phosphate, the protein shape changes and it becomes more likely to react with other proteins. At the end of this pathway, the cellular response is received and, in this case, acetylcholine is released.